Hello everyone, this is Amar Jafri, President ISACA, Islamabad Chapter, Pakistan. I welcome you all. A very good evening from Pakistan and maybe good morning or good afternoon from other parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very thankful to all of you for joining this very important webinar today, which is focused on something which is equally important for all of us in every part of the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, I could figure out more than 35 people have already joined from different parts of the world. And I'm really very thankful the members of ISACA community helping us in this difficult time. Ladies and gentlemen, today topic is business continuity planning during and after Corona. We have not invited Corona. It has come and it is there to stay for some more days. So the period is not in our control. How many days, how many months, God knows, we don't know. I think, but we need to sit together, ponder, use our collective wisdom to understand the real threat. No stories, no media hypes, and then identify the challenges and corresponding solutions. Today's webinar is very focused on one issue, that what are the challenges and what are the corresponding solutions. So today, the format of the webinar would be as follows. There will be 5 panelists. I'll just name them out. And all others are participants. So the participants will listen to the panelists. And then once the panelists are finished, the participants can have questions. But it should be question only because we are very time limited and there are a great number of people waiting to put questions from different parts of the world. I'd like to introduce the panelists. Our first panelist is Hassan Syed. We are very honored to have him on board. He is advisor to the Minister of Science and Technology in Pakistan. He has been in USA for 30 years, has been in the core technologies and understand the real threats to the business in public and private sector both. Second panelist is Mr. Farooq Nair. He is from Canada and currently he is working with the Canadian side and representing cybersecurity professionals in ISACA International and is working with EC Council also. Third panelist is Mr. Javed Khalid. He is Chief Security Information Security Officer from Askari Bank, Pakistan. Our fourth speaker is Mr. Leonard Ong. He is a very good friend. He is the board member ISACA International from 17 to 19. And he is a group CISO of Poland Health also. Our fifth panelist is Mr. Hassam Khattab. He is President ISACA, Amman, Jordan. So there has been a very fair distribution between 3 entities, ISACA, Cybersecurity Alliance of Pakistan, and PISA Pakistan. So very briefly, my introduction. My name is Amar Jafri. I am a former head of the government organization dealing with cybersecurity. That is called NR3C, National Response Center for Cyber Crimes. Currently, I am President PISA. I am the founding President PISA Pakistan, and you all know about PISA. And recently, we have formed a Cybersecurity Alliance of Pakistan, and I am thankful to the foreign entities from Pakistan. They are Pakistani professionals and working in different public and private sector organizations abroad. So, Cybersecurity Alliance of Pakistan is addressing number of strategic, policy, and legal issues of cybersecurity in Pakistan. So Under Digital Pakistan, we are entering into a number of initiatives, which are SDGs, which are emerging technologies, which are taking the power of technologies at the grassroots to Rural Incubation Center and cybersecurity. With all these domains, we are trying to link our university students to engage them in a meaningful careers. So with all this background of the webinar, now I will request our panelists. Our first panelist is President ISACA, Amman Chapter Jordan, Mr. Hassam Khattab. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, dear. I hope that I can give you a brief description about the situation in Jordan nowadays. The first coronavirus was recorded in Jordan like 3 weeks ago, and the Jordanian government went to the extreme. After the recording of the first case in Jordan, the government enforced total lockdown for the whole country, including all sectors. This might cover banking sector and SME and governmental public sector. Everything is a total shutdown. But this shutdown started like 2 weeks ago, and we expect that such lockdown will be extended for another 2 weeks. That's the expectations. However, we are still waiting the official announcement. Before the lockdown, many Jordanian organizations started to enforce the business continuity planning in their premises. For example, we have seen and witnessed some scenarios like staff isolation, especially in the banking sector. The banking sector was one of the first sectors in Jordan that captured the threat of coronavirus, of COVID-19. So they started with just the spreading the hygiene across all employees, staff isolation across different buildings and different premises, just to make sure that the job and the work will continue till this crisis slow down so far. However, the main challenge nowadays in Jordan that we locked the banking sector, for example, for 2 weeks, and there is demands from people in Jordan, Jordanian people, that they want to make some banking transactions like deposits and international transfers and so on for their life just to be normal as usual. However, such situation just escalated discussions in Jordan. How can we ensure that banking is supporting people in their interest? So we just a minute ago, the Jordanian government issued a new announcement that all banks shall go for partial working hours from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 4 hours each day, offering basic services like deposits, international transfers, and so on. And I think that this shall tackle the discussion in each bank and each organizations. How can we offer such services to the public without affecting the health of our employees? That's the real question nowadays. So up to my best knowledge, that some banks will start their initiative, and they're working using the minimum number of employees without just they're getting back to normal as usual. So we expect that not all employees will work from their offices nowadays. And the second approach, work from home. Such approach was enforced like 3 weeks ago. Many employees were asking just to work from home, and the real challenge for IT security people, how can we secure these connections just to make sure that all of these connectivity are working securely for the best of the organizations, not also just to resume work, also to make sure that security is maintained during the crisis and after the crisis. That's one of the main issues that were tackled during this crisis. And please let me share with you that from my experience, I might just forget to introduce myself. I have about 15 years of audit experience, and nowadays I'm audit practitioner. And the real questions from audit perspective, what do we expect from internal audit to act during crisis? Shall we expect that internal audit plan to be continued? Is there enough capacity to host any auditor or any audit practitioners during these days? This question's still not, we don't have mature answer in the market. However, what do I expect that, what shall we expect from internal audit just to act as a control advisor and control monitors, maybe rather than just to be an audit practitioners, because maybe it's not the best time to tackle internal audit within organizations. So we might just go to take off the internal audit hat and move more to be control advisor and to help the management and to help senior management to get the real value during the crisis. Because the main concern during the crisis is to resume work as much as we can without affecting without affecting the risk and without being more without compromising the risk, without threatening the organization objectives. That's one of the questions that might come to our minds. How can we ensure that risk is maintained, risk is managed during the crisis, and what's the role of internal audit during this crisis? So I expect that the internal audit will be more to the extent to be more control advisor during this crisis rather than being rather than audit practitioners. That's all from my side. And please, if you have anything, please just ask me. And thanks, dear, for all the panelists and all the attendees.
Okay, Khawaja Mohammad Ali sahab, can you say something from ISACA Pakistan side? Khawaja Mohammad Ali.
Thank you for having me on board. I think the real situation from the industry perspective is that this is something, the ongoing pandemic is something for which the world all over was not ready. We have prepared our disaster recovery and BCP for certain scenarios, but this scenario, I would say, it was not expected. I mean, like there are certain acts of God that we consider, but frankly speaking, this kind of pandemic was not expected. And people are not saying that this is an act of God. I mean, like, this is what my perception is. And there would be in future also, there would be many such incidents that would come across. So this is the time when everyone has to learn and better prepare for the future. So this is one take. And you would see that in this current scenario, everyone is trying to extend their network. So like they're offering work from home services, to work from remote places. And that is obviously creating issues for all the organizations to provide the infrastructure to their employees, to people who are contributing. So in the developing countries, the real challenge is that people who would be working from home may not get the internet service or the connectivity as easy as they used to get while they work from office. So it's a double challenge for the developing countries. So in the times to come, we have to make sure that work from home should always be part of our BCP plans, and we have to plan better for that. And another thing that I want to add here is that this coronavirus is one area, is one threat. And when we say social distancing, so actually this is not actual social distancing. This is physical distancing. The other day, Farooq also mentioned this, that this is physical distancing. And you see, we are unable to control this pandemic because, I mean, despite that, it's in hand of our people. Like, it's person to person, we can stop it, but we're unable to do it. And there would be a time, God forbid, there would be a time in future, then everybody would be facing the cyber attack, God forbid. And that will be the time when we'll have to do actual social distancing. And at that time, when there would be a cyber attack, the social distancing would not be from people to people. It will be, we would have to disconnect our networks, our interconnected systems. That means if there would be no interconnected system, there would be no cyberspace. So we'll have to learn and we'll have to get ourselves ready for the time when there would be no cyberspace available because of some attacks in future. So the times ahead are very challenging. In this corona period, we have to not only run our business, but we have to learn and better prepared for the future. So I think this is the talk from my side for today.
Sidra, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and please go ahead.
Right. What I can do is I can explain what's happening in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And what are the things that we have seen and what sort of actions that our government has taken and what we are facing at the moment. So actually we have started seeing the coronavirus somewhere in February. We got first case confirmed in February. It's a Chinese origin person, but we managed to isolate that individual, as well as we managed to get her recovered. And we thought, okay, that we are fine with that one. We will not have any more cases. But we didn't do much actions, like we were focusing on that person. After the recovery, we had about 2 to 3 weeks of free time. Then we got the next case somewhere around 10th of March. That's the time we identified a tourist guide who has diagnosed with this coronavirus. And then our government start isolating these individuals and start contact tracing from where this person came, how he had got infected, and how he got infected, as well as we do the complete contact tracing, and we isolate that individual, and we realize that there's another person who was very closely associated with him, and that person also got infected. So this is just started with 1 or 2 cases in Sri Lanka. Then the government took immediate measures to isolate them and provide the government-funded quarantine centers. So immediately government brought the military and gave that authority to the military to have their quarantine centers. And we found a separate isolated area and we established a quarantine center. And everyone is suspected, straight away moved to those quarantine centers, and all the medical staff and the military staff fully geared with the protective equipments to handle the situation. And from there only we started. Then we realized things are going higher. So we start imposing all the curfew situation in Sri Lanka, and we start blocking all the people coming and getting contact with others. And now the situation is somewhere we have about 115 cases in Sri Lanka. And so the entire Sri Lanka is under curfew. They have identified hotspots everywhere, and they have blocked all the hotspots and imposed the curfew. So main problem we have is how to deliver the food, because there are so much of organization. They straight away start imposing all the work from home facilities. Even we are working from home. Business wise, no transaction happening, but most of our people are working from home using all the telcos are supporting. We had a separate task force created for fighting COVID, which include all the telcos, government organization, all that people. And now Sri Lanka has started delivery online orders to food delivery, because people can't come out because of the curfew situation. So now we have enabled all these people to, all the vendors to go to the street level and distribute essential food. People can pay and buy that one. If people can't, if there are individual people who are very, maybe the daily incomers, and what they do is they identify those individual and they give the essential food item free of charge. So much of other organizations also are helping with, especially like creating the protective equipment, ventilators. So much of fund is coming from the private sector to help curtailing this one. So this is the current situation in Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Mr. I think your point for the task force for participating all telcos and government organizations is very wonderful. And maybe we would like to listen from you, especially on this. There are, gentlemen, there are plus 90 participants right now in the conference, and all are waiting to speak. So we are time limited. So I request all participants to speak from 2 to 3 minutes and just quickly introduce themselves and come to the point that what are the challenges in the business continuity planning. This is very important because we can talk hours on the virus, but we now need to focus on that how our organization will function in the present circumstances. Are we ready for work from home, from the security point of view, from logging into our computers? And we would like to, because this is an international forum, there are people from different countries, and we would like to listen from different countries' perspective. And then the participant will be making some question in the end, and then we will talk about it. Sidra, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually I spoke earlier also about this business continuity wise.
Listen about your task force you talked about. That is very interesting for us.
Yeah, task force, we have two different task force. One is the government task force, as well as we have as IT organizations. We have got together and created a task force, like how we can help organization to continue their business. There are organizations at the moment who have the capability to continue their business without any other people, vendors coming in, because they have internal staff, they have the tools. For instance, my company, we are using 100% on Microsoft platform, as well as we can work from home. But the other organization who don't have that facilities, what we have created is like ISACA, BC Sri Lanka, as well as all the telcos in Sri Lanka, as well as there are so many IT organizations like IIA, maybe there in Sri Lanka, there's something called Federation of Information Technology, as well as there's a government organization called ICTA, that is Information Technology Agency of Sri Lanka. So we have tied up with all these institutions, and we are pushing the government also, as well as the telcos, to give the free bundles, data bundles, because one major aspect is when you're working from home, you're using your personal data. But there's a huge impact because when you have the personal connections, we use only limited number of data they have. But organizations have a huge thing. They said you have to work from home because they don't have data. So we are pushing all the telcos to double their data. For instance, if I apply 5 GB for my connection, it is doubling. So it make it 10 GB for that connection. As well as we have pushed the telcos. If you have organization if their personal connection, from the corporate connection, they can gift the data to personal connections. For instance, if a company A has a data connection, from that data connection, they can push it to their employees' connections individually and ask them to use those data. As well as all the organizations have agreed, as well as the telcos have agreed, because most of the organizations are not using their internet lease lines now. All the internet lease lines are idling now. So we have asked all those telcos to downgrade those internet connections immediately and give that free bandwidth to personal connections. So this is one way that we have pushed the telcos as well as the government to enable the work from home facility. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, thank you. So I will again request Godfred, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and please speak 2-3 minutes for the topic, please.
Okay, my name is Godfred Kwakye. I work with the National Cybersecurity Center in Ghana. Yeah. Yeah, as the topic says, the current situation due to the lockdown. Currently, in my office, we are using the Microsoft team to work remotely as to when we have any kind of presentations or any work to show. We use the Microsoft Teams. And I think the social distance is also going to help in terms of the banking sectors, so that at least at every point in time, there will be someone who is at the office trying to check the systems which is happening, because we can't just leave the systems to run on its own, since there are human beings supposed to have access and then work on it. So if every country is putting in measures that is going to help the banking sectors, I think the social distancing aspect is going to work, in the sense that there shouldn't be more than one or more than two people with the same job role in the office. So that if today, for instance, I come to the office and I'm a systems administrator and I'm in the office, tomorrow the next person who probably should come is also a systems administrator. So if we are in the office and we are about 10, maybe today we can have about, let's say 2 or 3 people who can help the systems running, so that the infection rate will be reduced. I think that's what I have in mind.
We may get back to you again to listen to you. Asif, do you want to say anything? Asif?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Please go ahead.
Because we are here to discuss about business continuity. So currently the situation that the world is facing, it's not a technology disaster. It is a business continuity issue from 2 main things. And I want the panelists to speak about these 2 things. The first one is the supply chain. What are your essential supplies which a human would need in these times? So how are we going to ensure our supply chain of your essential items? 1. Secondly, how can you continue manufacturing those essential items for the humans? So you cannot work from home to continue manufacturing the goods in your factories. To do the manufacturing, to continue manufacturing those items, one has to go physically to the factory. So what are the how are you going to deal with that? So these are the 2 main points I think that I would like to suggest all the panelists to speak about. One is supply chain, logistics. Secondly, the manufacturing in the factories. Thank you.
Javed, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very clear now. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, first of all, to all the participants and the panelists. My name is Javed Jabbar, and I'm currently heading the information security at the Bank of Khabar at Peshawar. Every panelist has talked about the BCP arrangements that they are doing in their respective countries. Well, because I'm from the banking sector, I'm going to talk about what we are doing, because in fact, what I have seen is that the bankers are the frontline forces that have been affected by the COVID-19 virus as well. And that is the reason that the banks are taking many steps, and the State Bank is also allowing banks to take measures that can mitigate the risk of the coronaviruses. Like the State Bank has recently allowed the banks to reduce their operations to around 50%. And similarly, banks, what we have done at the Bank of Khabar, we have reduced the staff. We have in fact reduced the staff divided the staff in 3 categories. One of the category will be working from the office, the other category would be working from the home, and the third category would be working from the BCP side. So what we have done, we have dispersed the staff. Now the greatest challenge that we are facing is allowing the people to work from home and provision all the services that they can get and effectively resume their services from their home. That is the biggest challenges that currently we are facing. We are trying to leverage the VPN connectivity, but then there is a challenge that some of the people don't have their official laptops. They were working on the desktop computers in the office, so they would be joining from their desktop from their home or from their personal laptops. So similarly, the information security headache for us is how we can secure that part or endpoint and let them continue their work from home. So these are some of the thoughts from my side, and I hope other panel would shed some light on it as well. Thank you, Amarsa. Thank you very much for allowing me.
Thank you, thank you. Attique, are you there?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Amarsa, I'm here.
Please, Attique, go ahead. Attique is the most senior, most PISA member in Lahore. So, Attique, please go ahead.
Thank you, Amarsa. My question would be that right now, government also, all around the world, the governments are also in trouble. And we know that particularly in our part of the world, the government is not ready for any kind of a business continuity planning. And you saw that in all sorts of decision making while they were making decisions to whether to impose the lockdown or not lockdown. So there was no business continuity planning already in place. And we all know that the business continuity planning is not with reference to once in a pandemic or any kind of a situation arises and then we respond. It is something that should always be there and automatically ignited when a situation arises like that. So what at the platform of ISACA and PISA, what we can do is that we can suggest a couple of recommendations and wires to the government sector as well, how to manage the situation if at all these kind of situations arises anytime again.
Mr. Masood, can you hear us?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can very clear. Please go ahead. Please introduce yourself and please go ahead.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep all of you in this hifza iman. Inshallah ta'ala bless your efforts as well. And then make sure everyone stays safe and healthy. My name is Masaood YUNUS. I'm based out of Minnesota, USA. I'm part of Hassan Syed's group, Empower Pakistan. I'm also an entrepreneur in consulting field and also do a lot of innovation work in many different fields too. I luckily happen to have experience around designing business continuity, business resiliency, and disaster recovery type of initiatives across multiple different areas, including the banking sector, including consumer goods, as well as oil and gas too. So I'm glad to offer any perspectives out here too. For example, my company that I work for right now, we basically have profiled our critical systems into a small portfolio and then created specific VPNs that will be accessing those, that will be open to our working from home community or population to access those specific applications only. That has actually helped us manage our bandwidth as well as make our critical applications available. Obviously, we live in a very mature society from our technology maturity perspective. So even if there are any gaps, we are still able to pull in some technology, some technical capabilities to actually quickly enable security, data privacy, and all those kind of things too. So happy to help out with anything that I can too. One thing I can tell you is, for a lot of people who are now working remotely all of a sudden, I think the one thing that everyone can do is basically make sure that all the critical systems that they need access to continue to perform and do their job. Make sure you can put some controls around those too. You might have to do some compromises around data privacy in the short term, but look for technologies, and I'm happy to explain some of those technologies too, but look for some technologies that can actually help you access them in your limited bandwidth. At the same time, Microsoft Teams have been an extremely helpful tool. Zoom obviously has been an extremely helpful tool to collaborate. One strategy that we have found to be very helpful is basically, if you can, stay on an extended period of time with your team, with your own team at work. If you can stay with them virtually on Microsoft Teams or Zooms for a little extended period of time, that collaboration is also helping make things happen. Jazakumullah khair, and happy to answer any questions later on if anyone has any.
Thank you. Leonard, can you now express your views?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. So let me provide a brief introduction. So I've been very active in ISACA community, but on the professional side, I am the global, the group CISO for Fullerton Health. So it's a healthcare company based in Asia Pacific. And I think one couple of things that I observed from this recent situation is that every organization will have BCP. But interesting thing is that none of the BCP scenarios would prepare us for this. Typically, BCP plans are prepared against standard scenarios. And in these specific categories, for example, pandemic, we probably have a benchmark of pandemic to the level of SARS or the H1N1, but nothing prepare us for the scenario that what we have today, where borders are being locked down, the restriction of workforce moving from one country to the other country. So in that, making BCP that we have probably a bit obsolete or ineffective. So I think that's what I observed so far. And therefore, I think we need to quickly reassess what is the BCP plan that we have now, because what you may have and what you have tested, it may not be relevant or effective for the current situation. So I think that's the first point. The second point is that regarding work from home, I think, or remote working, I think that's really a convenient action or initiative that we put on the BCP. But then again, we have to remember a couple of considerations. The first one, not all jobs could be done remotely. So for example, if you're doctors, you're nurses, you have to be on hospital and the clinics to provide that service. Similarly, if you're in manufacturing, you have to do physical activities at the manufacturing plant and you can't work remotely. So how do we ensure that those activities remains happening on the ground? The the second variable is that the culture. I noticed that many of the large organization or multinational companies, typically they are very used to telecommuting, but for small and medium or even regional or local companies, not all companies are used to this arrangement. There are questions about productivity, there are questions about effectiveness, and perhaps unfamiliarity with this kind of arrangement. So that's something that we have to think about as well. And last but not the least, I think it's a snowball effect. So if we are unable to perform business as usual, then it's going to have an impact to our customer and their customer. So I think that's something that we all has to work together. I think someone mentioned about the supply chain. I think that's very important. And I think that would call for all of us to work together closer. So just to kick off some discussion, that's a few points from my side at this point of time.
Thank you very much. Before I ask the participants to have questions, I will request Mr. Hassan Syed and Mr. Leonard. I am very thankful to you that I know it's 12 o'clock in your part of the world and you are still waiting for this talk. And thank you again. So Mr. Hassan Syed is the advisor to the government of Pakistan of science and technology. He has a very long experience of plus 30 years in USA, Canada, and he has been in the all business processes. So with all his experience abroad and now in Pakistan, I would request Mr. Syed to please tell us about the current situation in Pakistan, especially with reference to the participants and the panelists we have heard. What collective efforts should be made from the international support? Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hope you guys can hear me okay. First of all, Amar, thank you for organizing this kind of event, which is extremely important for people to start talking to each other on potential challenges and start thinking about potential solutions. As Masood referred, that Pakistan cannot be compared with, the preparedness that you would expect from developed countries like USA. The access to technology and the infrastructure and the readiness of the infrastructure to deal with. So we need to understand that our situation, is further complicated because of the weaknesses in the infrastructure. So even in the US, as far as I know, that YouTube and Netflix both have tried to throttle down bandwidth usage, throttle down the quality of the videos that were being served to kind of provide continuity to more important internet traffic. So one lesson learned today, I think, for everybody who is working in Pakistan, most probably is to be prepared for a distributed team, that is dependent on the internet connectivity, which means that the internet connectivity at home should also be, something that a company should think about their employees to get, because in a situation like this, you basically are asking them to work from home. The other thing, and so if you think of this kind of disaster, there are multiple layers of the business continuity planning. And that includes the, understanding of what is critical for your business, but at the same time, what is critical to run the society. So some of the speakers alluded to looking at the supply chain. And supply chain is something that not one company is just kind of, holding it. And it is, a collaboration between a lot of companies. And for the government to understand this, part of the business continuity planning, I think that's a good lesson. Of course, right now, it's very challenging for many countries to maintain that supply chain. Identifying the businesses upfront that are part of the critical services that needs to stay, stay working. But my long experience in IT and with the business continuity planning, disaster recovery and everything has always been that when there is no disaster, when there is no problem, it's not taken seriously to basically invest in measures that are going to help you continue the business. And this could be another lessons learned because the scale of this challenge that we are seeing is so big that people should be able to, I'm just talking about the silver lining, that people should be able to understand in the future why it is important for us to think about business continuity. In Pakistan, I think that the major challenge for the companies that are trying to have their workforce work from home is the availability of the infrastructure where most of the work is considered to be work on site. That really means that in the future, companies should seriously look into cloud hosted applications, which was not the trend in Pakistan. And I think that this is something that most probably would help accelerate adoption of the cloud in Pakistan. In terms of the outside technology, there are a lot of things outside technology that we need to think about when it comes to business continuity planning. But I'm trying to just focus on the bandwidth, the internet, the application and that side of it. But happy to answer any questions about any other area of the business continuity planning. One thing that we also learned during this time was the mobilization of a lot of volunteers that basically can work on unprecedented challenges. For example, Pakistan doesn't have as many ventilators as many one would like. Actually, no country in the world has got enough ventilators to prepare for the kind of tsunami of the cases that they are going to see. So there is a serious need for a close coordination between a group of volunteers that actually are not part of a single company or a government, but then they are working together to develop all sort of different ventilator models that can be produced through indigenous capacity rather than importing them from another country, because pretty much every country has, put a halt on the exports of ventilators. So, these are, some interesting challenges. And I think that at the end of it, hopefully we will get out of this with minimum harm, and, we will learn a lot from this pandemic.
Farooq, are you there? Can you hear us? Farooq.
Yes, I can.
Farooq, please, Farooq is from Canada. Farooq, please introduce yourself, and then please say something on the topic we are discussing. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Marsab. First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me to this session. It's been a pretty good discussion so far, so thank you for the opportunity. Can everybody hear me okay? Just doing a sound check.
Perfectly. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So just a few things from my perspective. My name is Farooq Nair. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer for Orion. Orion is the Research and Education Network for the province of Ontario. And Orion is also the first non-commercial 5G network for Canada. Apart from that, I'm a shared CISO for about 14 universities and 15 colleges in Ontario too. Now, from the business continuity perspective, we had been working on a business continuity plan for Orion since we are an ISP for quite some time. I mean, we have a really stringent business continuity plan in place. We do work closely with all the authorities within the province of Ontario and the federal government too. So we did have lots of scenarios in place for business continuity. Pandemic planning was not part of that, but in our case, what happened was that when we got the news back in January that China has an outbreak, and at that time when COVID-19 was not even classified as pandemic planning, we brought in all our key stakeholders and we started working on a pandemic plan, a plan back in January. So we were working on how our employees are going to be working from home. We were working on a plan as to how students are going to be accessing resources from home. We were already working on a plan to have VPNs in place. In fact, one of the colleges that I work with had ordered about 10 to 15,000 Chromebooks. We were in touch with all our cloud service providers since most of us do use the cloud. So we did have about 2 to 3 months of preparation time. And I think by the first week of March, all the universities and colleges in Canada were in close communication with each other in terms of how are we going to be working through the pandemic. So I think by the second week of March, when the entire provincial government in Ontario shut down, and in fact, most of the provinces did actually go for a complete remote working environment, we did have a plan in place to make sure that all the students in the universities are able to access resources online. They do have VPN in place. Now, the thing is that we had never, ever had a situation in which we had to switch over to online learning for all the universities and colleges before. So this was a first from many perspectives. So in our case, when we actually switched over all the universities and colleges, and if we add up all the numbers, we're talking about 50 plus institutions going online at the same time. So we were, this was quite an experience for us. For us, a blessing in disguise was that the schools were off. The schools were in the middle of a spring break. So we did not see too much of a network utilization. I mean, our total network utilization was hit about 35%. So that was something we were able to manage. But so far, this is like week number 3 for us, while we are working remotely, and it's been quite a smooth transition for us. We've been sharing our success stories with other stakeholders in the US, in Europe, and so far we are more than happy to share this with the research and education institutions in Pakistan. But it's been quite an experience for us, and I think the public and private partners have been quite helpful in this regard.
Thank you, Mr. Farooq. Now I will start with the question from the participants. The first question is from Sama GCS Hyderabad, India. Are you there, Sama? Sama, are you there? Okay. Her question is that what are the security measures to be followed when we work from the home? And I think, Leonard, you can answer this question.
Yes, thanks, Amar. I think that's a very good question. I think the security consideration when working remotely is important. In fact, recently we had to draft out an advisory and send it to all employees. But some of the key advice or the key points that we communicated to employees are: first, use your corporate issued devices. This could be corporate issued laptops or mobile devices or tablets. And secondly, if you're working from home, then make sure your home routers are secured. I think, and if you have to work from untrusted network connectivity, such as in cafe and somewhere else, which that is not a good idea at this point of time, but if you had to, then I think the VPN to corporate network is something that must be done. So I think a lot of this common sense are there, but sometimes we have to remind our employees and staff what needs to be done. And what we have done is to put all these key points into an advisory, or like a poster that we put as a soft copy and we email out to all employees. I think the last important point that I would like to highlight is, of course, the physical copies of documents. Sometimes if you work from home and you may want to print out something, and we have to make sure that that printed copies are not left behind in any corners of your home, but rather be concentrated in a particular workplace, and then it must be secured physically as well. So perhaps the other speaker can add on into that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Asim, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Please repeat your question.
It's not a question. I would like just to elaborate on the last question that was raised about the security of remote connections. I would like just to highlight that there should be something like bring your own device policy. That this should be might be helpful in this such situation, because we expect the security measures should be employed by the employer himself and the employee at the same time. For example, in addition to the measures that was mentioned by Leonard, that all of these measures are now might be conducted by the employee, but from the employer side, organization side, there should be some network security measures that organizations should prepare secure connections, secure VPN, maybe VPN firewalls, just to make sure that the routers and network infrastructure is available and up and running for their employees to access their data. And one last thing, just to make sure that the data confidentiality is maintained during the crisis, because as Leonard just said and highlighted, that once you open these documents from from not corporate issued devices, so make sure that these documents are perfectly secured, or let me say sufficiently secured, not just deal with them and without practicing any security measures. That's all.
Yeah, and if I can build on the question, and this is a question for other panelists, I think in some of the market that we operate, employees do not have was not given a laptop, but they work on a desktop. So obviously they can't bring the desktop back home, right? So they need a way to access their computer at the office in order to work. Has anyone come across to this scenario, and how would you deal with it?
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Sadaf Khalid, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, please have your question first. Please go ahead.
My question to the international panelist, any one of you who can answer, is the physical aspect relating to the tourism industry that is badly hit globally. What is your take on that? What is going to be the sustainable model till the coronavirus situation gets better? So because visual tourism you're talking about is only for those countries who are advanced in technology, but the countries, it's very new concept still. And my second question is that people who don't have access to technology in Pakistan, how can they self-sustain their business? So I just have two questions. Yes.
Anybody want to answer?
Okay, I can take that.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, and I think as an add-on, I'll respond to Asif's question also. So I was part of a webinar yesterday, which was talking about how the tourism industry and the aviation industry is hit, given the current circumstances. So the thing is that I can talk about the Canadian ecosystem right now. So the Canadian government has come up with a package of about $85 billion, which does have a provision for small businesses and the hospitality industry and the tourism industry. Now, it's just a stimulus package which is just going to provide enough money to such industries to sustain for 3 to 4 months. So the short answer is that on a short-term basis, the Canadian government, and I know there's some governments in European Union who are also providing a stimulus package which can sustain this, sustain salaries, sustain such businesses for the next 3 to 4 months. But from the long-term perspective, they don't have something in place, because remember one thing, this was something which was not predicted. We have never been in a situation where the whole world has come to a standstill. So in fact, I was watching a program on Al Jazeera yesterday, and they were talking about this, and they were quoting examples of post 9/11 scenario wherein the whole aviation industry took a hit, and it took them about 4 to 5 years to recover. So right now, I mean, we are all praying that this entire pandemic is over in the next 4 to 5 months. I really hope and pray it is that case, but I don't see that happening soon. So let's hope and pray how this whole thing goes, because one of the key things which is happening is that the insurance industry is also taking a step back right now, because most of these organizations are going to insurance companies to cover for damages, and that's not helping them much. So we can just hope and pray at this point in time. There are two questions related to higher education also. I'll just take them too, if you're okay with it.
Please. Okay. You know what panelists can do? You can read the question and please start responding to that. Please go ahead.
So Sajjad Saab has asked a question, and he said that my question is for Farooq. This COVID-19 pandemic is new for everyone, but in Pakistan, I think most of the education institutes is not ready for this crisis. What do you suggest that important measures shall be taken so these institutions are prepared well in time? So I'll share my example. So I think what can be done is that we can learn from the past. What the Canadian institutions did was that Canada had experienced a pandemic back in 2003. So if you guys remember the SARS epidemic, which was not a pandemic, but it was a epidemic which affected many people. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
very clear.
So what happened back then was that most of the public institutions, because the higher education sector in Canada is completely public sector. So back in 2003, they came up with a business continuity plan, and they had a provision for an epidemic or a illness which could affect a big part of the population. So back then they started working on a model for remote learning. So this goes back all the way to like 15 to 16 years. So I don't want to go into the details, but it took us 15 to 16 years to build up an infrastructure which can support online learning. And of course, that's something which has helped us. And of course, we had lots of private sector partners and lots of public sector partners. So what can Pakistani institutions do? So one of the things that the Pakistani institutions can do is that they need to collaborate. In fact, the private sector needs to come forward and help them out. Like for instance, in our case, we had Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Google, and of course, lots of other big players who stepped in to make sure that we have the right platform in place. So I think what I would suggest is that in Pakistan, all the leading private sector players like Huawei has one of the biggest cloud infrastructure in Pakistan. We've got all the other private sector players also. They can step in and probably provide a platform for these institutions to at least test out in terms of online learning. In Pakistan, many people don't have a PC, but almost every third person has a cell phone, right? If you have a cell phone, You have access to online resources, right? The Zoom meeting that we are just in right now can be accessed via your cell phone. Most of the online learning resources that we are using, like Desire to Learn, Blackboard, Microsoft Teams, and a bunch of other tools, they can be accessed via apps, via Android or iOS apps. So I think the institutions should develop an approach for making sure that their learning resources can be accessible through commonly used online learning or video conferencing tools, and they can work on that. Apart from that, there should be considerable effort to make sure that access to these resources is also secure. Like we all spoke about VPN, but one of the other things which people should also consider, and we are experiencing that right now, is having a secure video conferencing solution in place. In the past 10 days, I mean, we have come across numerous security issues within Zoom itself and some other video conferencing tools. We commonly see that people are copy pasting snapshots of the video conferencing session, which people should not do. That's highly insecure. There is a new concept called Zoom bombing, in which the Zoom meeting invites are shared on public channels, and they are accessed by rogue people and who try to hijack the meeting, or they try to share their screen or share any obnoxious messages. So make sure that if you guys are going to be doing, if anybody is going to be doing any public video conferencing session, make sure that there are default controls in place. Like for instance, nobody can join it by default, but the administrator should join it first. There should be a password-based access. There should be a properly administered video conference so that people cannot hijack it or perhaps share something obnoxious on it. There are lots of other controls related to it, like single sign-on, making sure that there is some kind of a single sign-on control. People are also talking about having MFA in video conferencing solutions also. So these are just examples of that.
Please introduce yourself first, the participants.
I am Chandrasekhar Sharma from Hyderabad, India.
Okay, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So, just my question is for Leonardo. What are the information security measures we have to follow at the time of this? Because a lot of phishing attacks are being made or due to this coronavirus. So, what are that? We are going to apply those information security measures at the time of coronavirus.
Yes, thanks for the question. I think at the normal times, we have done quite a number of things like the security awareness training, phishing tests, and I think the previous panelist has also mentioned about teleconferencing security, securing physical information at home as well as at the device itself that is used to access the information resources in the company, right? So I think the only extra steps that I think needed is more awareness that there are new campaign exploiting the COVID situation. For example, there could be an email that is impersonating a doctor, saying that you have to click this link to get a test or to get information about the COVID-19. And that's something probably people are more easier for them to fall into such trick, because this is a different type of phishing, right? So I think we just have to reinforce the messages, what are the new campaign, the new social engineering attacks, and share this with your employees. In fact, recently, in the past couple of weeks, I've administered a mandatory e-learning to all the employees and to specifically cover the new scenario so that they are aware of this situation. But other than that, I think all the things that we have done, deploying security controls on the mobile devices, on the laptops, on the desktop, as well as on the infrastructures, those we still continue to do as usual.
Your side, please go ahead, Sarah. Sarah, there's a question from your side. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'm Sarah, and I work in Khan University Hospital. So it's I want to share the experience that we have in our university actually, Akhan is basically, we are dealing with the two businesses. One is of the university side and the other one is of hospital side. And you already know that in this difficult times of COVID, hospitals are on the front line. So whenever this when this situation arises, so we have to deal with both of our businesses. The good thing was that there are a lot of online teaching and learning stuff is already there, and the students are taking advantage of that stuff. So the whole of the classes and all the things went online. For that, we are already using virtual learning environment and models for that. So for all the things, for all the lectures and all this stuff are transferred to that. The other area is the hospital area. For that one, most of their hospital related operational are minimized, but to just as a continuity plan, they have started telemedicine. So they have just started that, and on the IT side, we already have the laptops available with all the staff, and VPNs are already there, and so people are able to connect. And officially, we are using Microsoft Teams for the meetings and the other stuff. So the projects which we are already working on, they are also in the continuity, and we are currently working with South Africa, a few East African countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and in UK as well. So the basic thing, the thing that I would like to share is that there was a basic infrastructure available, due to which we were able to cope up the situation really well.
Thank you, Zara. Thank you much. Masaood YUNUS, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Yes, I actually have a quick comment on a couple of previous questions, if that's okay. I'll just take about a minute or two.
Okay, fine. No issues. No issues. So,
great, James.
Please go ahead.
So, someone asked a question about, accessing desktops remotely. A couple of different strategies that I've seen that has been working too. Number one, Windows has a remote desktop assistant feature built in. So I've seen a lot of people actually accessing their desktops sitting at home from their own compute device and accessing their work computer using remote desktop. For that purpose, a lot of companies are actually maintaining an essential staff, IT staff on site in their corporate environments or in their corporate locations, so they can actually help help those remote users access their desktops. One. Number two, a lot of organizations are also spinning off solutions like Citrix that are actually helping people, use desktop as a service. Microsoft has a similar service as well. They are actually using those Citrix desktop as a service solutions to also actually access critical services one way or the other too. I'm happy to explain that more. If anyone has any questions too, you can reach out to me directly after this too. I'm happy to help you out. Secondly, on the travel and tourism for Pakistan. Personally, very passionate about this because really want to see things, things take off for Pakistan. If I'm not wrong, last year in 2018's tourism revenue for Pakistan was about 600, 700, or 800 million dollars or some US dollars something. I think for the government, it's time to sweat in peace, which simply is making sure that the branding of Pakistan tourism continues to happen one way or the other too. All the positive things about Pakistani tourism continues to be showcased at the international level through Facebook or whatever medias one way or the other too. So a consistent message continues to go out that Pakistan tourism is really good and alive. And then time comes when market opens up, travel opens up, and all those two people will consider Pakistan as one of the destinations too. Also, I hope that government of Pakistan will throw some of its weight behind supporting this industry. Even if they have to spend in $30-40 million now to basically boost this industry, that can actually net more than $600-700 US dollar, $700-800 million revenue in the long run. I think that's totally worth it too. So I really hope that someone really basically make that happen. Thank you, sir.
Okay, fine, go ahead. So the next question is from just a minute. Sajjad, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Sajjad. I'm working in government organization for the last 10 years. Is Farooq is here or he left?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just put my question on the question module, but he did not reply my answer, which I am looking for. I am talking about in Pakistan, in Canada, we have a strong processes. We have a strong system over there. But in Pakistan, we don't have such processes or system in education institute. So what are the measures should we take in order to achieve best results if we face similar crisis in future? So what are the minimum measure we should education should take? Further, I believe he told in 2003 in Canada there is crisis all over the world. We have a crisis over. So in it takes around 15 years to achieve some BCB, some DRP plans. But Pakistan cannot wait such number of years.
Thank you.
The question is from the gentleman from Canada. As we don't know what's going to be the future, I think we all the humanity aspect. You are muted. I'm muted again. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead, Sridhar. We can hear you. Please. Hear you.
Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But the biggest, I think, hurdle which we are all facing is our learning process. Our kids are sitting home and they're not studying and they're not able to. And I have many of my relatives who are teachers and their time is so important. So this is where I want Mr. Nayyar to take a serious step towards making a global presence of Orion. So tomorrow, if this happens, you should be able to provide a one-stop solution for the entire world. And Canada is a country where you have a very forward-looking people. And this is where I think Mr. Nayyar and people who are in this very industry, because Mr. Nayyar particularly I'm referring to because he is working with the system which is already in place. So this is my request. And the question is that the most important thing now we all should start thinking. There is a very nice research study has come from the London School of Economics. And that is, now let's talk about how the after effects of this very calamity which has happened in our lives is going to happen. There is a website called all.net. Fred is somebody I know from some time. He is talking something very interesting. Have a look at it. So thank you very much, Jafri Saab, for listening.
Nayyar, Farooq would like to respond to him.
Yeah, yes, I would like to. So I think there are multiple questions which are focused towards the same subject that, okay, what should Pakistani institutions do or what can be done in Pakistan to promote that there is some kind of an arrangement to respond to such threats? Okay, the first thing that I would like to say is that we should learn from successful models in Pakistan first and try to piggyback on those. We had a lady called Sarah from Aga Khan University Hospital who spoke about how Aga Khan University Hospital is successfully coping up with this. So 3 years ago, I was part of a workshop in Pakistan, which was focused towards teaching educationists in Pakistan about how to use Moodle. So most of you people are familiar with a concept called Moodle. Moodle is an open source online learning tool. And there were lots of educationists from Pakistan who came and attended that session in Karachi. And I'm really happy to see that Aga Khan University Hospital has taken off with their online learning solution and they're doing a really good job. So hats off to them. So I think the first thing the Pakistani institutions should do is to have a framework in place to work together. Because in Canada, the reason why we are successful is that all higher ed institutions across Canada, they work together. So if Aga Khan University Hospital is doing some really good work in online learning and remote learning, they should share that experience with other institutions, private or public. That's the first one. Second one of the things that we should also take into account is that Pakistan has successful models of promoting online learning in the past. How many of you on this call know about Allama Iqbal Open University?
I know.
So Pakistan was So Pakistan was one of the first few countries who came up with the concept of remote learning way before the Westerners did. So that's a successful model. The second successful model is that in 2003, Pakistan launched Virtual University in Lahore, which came up with a whole concept of online learning. They had a channel on with PTV, which was providing online lectures. I was the one who promoted Virtual University back then. I was pretty young back then, but Virtual University opened up campuses in Pakistan. So Pakistan has about 2 to 3 reference models to learn from. So my advice to you guys is that Pakistan does not need to start from scratch. We just need to learn from successful models which already exist in Pakistan. So
Nair Sahab, I would just like to interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
I am trying to bring your attention of the entire audience here, and that is we are facing a global catastrophe. We are becoming a victim of something which is unpredictable. We don't know where it's going to go in 1 month, 2 months. May Allah make it as quick as possible that it should subside and we should be able to get out of this. I am only requesting Nair Sahab, you being in the Canada, holding a position in Canadian society and working with such a huge system and being part of so many universities, you should take the initiative that you should work on this O2 oxygen for the institutes all over the world, especially in Pakistan. So at least our kids should start studying from their home as soon as possible. This is my request. And let's see. I hope, inshallah, it will be good.
Waleed Shafqat, do you want to say anything? Waleed?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, sir. First of all, my name is Waleed Shafqat. I work as the Chief Operating Officer in Smart eHealth company, partnered with CIT Health Solutions. Firstly, I welcome all the international delegates present here. The topic today is how can we use business continuity planning with respect to SDGs during and after coronavirus period. I agree with some speakers. I was listening to them actually. Our company see positive side of this critical current situation for taking and introducing the BCP to people through technology, making them accustomed to online systems and health apps. Whichever plan we consider like health systems or education, they're operating in our city, Islamabad and other districts. We are making the public get knowledgeable information in this critical specified time, and they should be all technology enabled online, and they should be accustomed to these circumstances. During Corona, we should take as many preventive measures as possible, like masking, sterilizing, and complete isolation in home, etc. And we should also work from home and teach digitally by education, by delivering them different trainings, by caring, by marketing, by media, and by financially. After Corona, that is in the normal period, we will increase our work and increase our utilization of resources. Inshallah, we will implement BCP during and after COVID-19 in a proper manner. Thank you all. Take care and remember me in your prayers. That's
it. Thank you all. Actually, now we have to wind up. So finally, I would like to thank all of you for a very, very informative input. And there are so many participants right now. It is becoming very difficult for me to manage all these things. So what I would recommend is, today we have talked about the cyber criminals being active in the crisis situation. We have talked about the bandwidth issues. We have talked from the work from home issues. We have talked about the upcoming issues which we don't know. As Sunita said, we don't know about it. We talked about default settings, controls on Zoom. All these things are very important. So first thing I would request all of you to please send your WhatsApp number on the same channel on which we are working right now. And I would request Sufyan to please next time make a WhatsApp group of all people who are talking together, so that when we come on a real on Zoom connection, we actually know each other. Right now, my problem is so many people from so many countries, I can see them, but I don't know them. So it's very important for me. And I know it has been due to ISACA, it has been due to Cyber Security Alliance of Pakistan, a lot of people are abroad. So I would strongly recommend that next time we have a topic on cybersecurity issues, very specific cybersecurity issues during and after Corona. And I would again request all the panelists to please very specifically speak on what are the cybersecurity 3 challenges to us, top 3 challenges. There can be 100, but we'll talk about top 3 challenges, cybersecurity during Corona and after Corona. I would like to have a WhatsApp group because that is more fast to communicate. So in that WhatsApp group, I will share with you the possible time, because people are from the different time zones. I understand it very well. So we'll try to have some compromise so that people on other side of the world are comfortable, people on this side of the world are also comfortable. And I would strongly recommend that the panelists should be very specific on the topic. So the next topic, my suggestion is, it should be cybersecurity, because it's the upcoming issue. A lot of people have just given the flavor of it, but in the next talk, we'll talk about exactly about cybersecurity issues during Corona and after Corona. I personally think that when we all are sitting at homes, it's the best time to learn. Let me repeat again. It's the best time to learn, because we have nothing to do at our homes right now except to learn. So maybe we should have at least one such conference in a week. So today is Sunday. If you all agree in the WhatsApp group, it can be Sunday also, because we don't have to go out. There's a total lockout and there's a almost curfew situation everywhere. So I think this is the best time to learn, and it will be around 2 hours of session, in which first 1 hour the speakers will speak, and in next 1 hour the question answer. And definitely I will request the participants next time to please have their question, because if you, that will be very prudent on your part if you write it down, because then we can see it and when we can prioritize the people, because at times number of people make the same question, then you can bracket those questions. So in the end, I'll thank you all for a very, very patient listening, and please send us your WhatsApp number, especially people from different countries like India, from Middle East, from America, from USA, from all these places. So this has been a first meeting and a very rewarding and wonderful meeting. And I can still see a lot of raised hands. We can't answer their questions due to naturally we are time critical now. I thank you all. And if anybody has any last comment, Dr. Ishfaq, are you there? Because we want to listen to you. Dr. Ishfaq, can you hear us?
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, please, you are very audible. We wanted to listen to you. Please.
Right, sir. I just, sir, wanted to share my experiences of the last 2 weeks. For the complete audience, I just want to tell them that I am...
Can you please introduce yourself first? Because there are a lot of foreign audience. Introduce yourself first.
Sir. Bilkul. I am Dr. Ishfaq, and I am heading the cybersecurity department at NUST, Pakistan Navy Engineering College, Karachi. So, the most immediately, the effect was on the educational institutions, because all the educational institutions were immediately suspended. So, I went with my technology team, and I continued my efforts to uninterruptedly provide the services. So the classes remain, they were not suspended, because I conducted the classes online using Zoom, and similarly, I'm also using Microsoft Meetings. Now, the complete university is now shifting on the concept of the blended education. That is the online and the offline education both. Because the most important problem in Pakistan is the availability of the network, of the resources. So there should be a provision for the students and the faculty that they may go offline, they can send their lectures, they can embed the audio into the lectures. For example, if the PowerPoint they're using, They can embed their recorded lectures and they can share. And similarly, there are so many videos available. You can link those videos to your lectures. In this way, you can ensure the uninterrupted education system in Pakistan. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you, Dr. Saab. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It has been almost 2 hours we have been talking. And the next meeting on webinar will be on cybersecurity, which is my favorite topic. You know, everybody knows here. So we'll talk about all these things. And thank you very much. You have been very kind to all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you.